Have you ever met someone who looks like they have it all together on the outside, but on the inside, they're running on empty? So, our conversation today is one a lot of people really need. But the problem is, not enough people are having because when we think about healthcare professionals, especially nurses, we think about the strength that we see in them, right? We see the sacrifice. We see people who always show up for everyone else, but we don't always see the weight that they carry, the emotional toll, the burnout that builds quietly over time. Here's the truth: when people who are responsible for caring for others are depleted themselves, it doesn't just affect them, it affects everything. So, today we're going to be having a real conversation, not just about nursing, not just about healthcare, but calling pressure burnout and what it actually looks like to restore capacity mentally, emotionally, physically, and most importantly, spiritually. And so you're going to hear a story, you're going to hear some truth. And if you're someone who's been pushing even when you're exhausted, then this conversation here might be exactly what you didn't know you needed. So, welcome to Catch the Vision, where we help turn your experiences into insight and your insight into clarity and your clarity into impact. So, we're going to get right in this show.
Yay.
Tanika.
Hi, Kevin.
Hey. So, Tanika, do you remember how we met?
I do.
Do you remember the year?
2018.
2018.
Mm-hmm.
You mind sharing a little bit about that story, how connected me? Because you didn't even, we didn't go to school together, nothing like that, did we?
No, we didn't.
Share just like a brief overview of how we connected or how you end up getting connected with me.
So I found you on social media. We're from the same hometown from Arkansas, from Little Rock, Arkansas. And I saw that you were active in the community. You look like, what you would want a model man or a husband to be. At that time, I was married during that time. So I reached out to you because I felt like my ex-husband now needed a mentor. And so we came so we could talk, and that's how we got connected. I ended up getting connected with your wife, with the jury. So from there, we've just been connected since then.
Dang, 28. So that's what, 8 years ago?
Yeah.
Dang.
Mm-hmm. So much has changed.
I know, right?
I know.
And now both of us are here in Big D, Dallas, Texas.
I know. I love Texas.
Yeah. Crazy thing is, I should have made this move a long time ago. However, things have its seasons, right? Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, we're here now.
Absolutely.
So, Tanika, what is the story behind you becoming a nurse?
Good question. Good question. So I thought about this. I'm like, how do I say this? So I'm the manifestation of a deferred dream. Because of my grandmother. Mm-hmm. So my grandmother was a patient care technician at UAMS. And so she worked hard for her family and for her grandchildren. And she was never able to get the credentials of becoming a nurse. Really? So she put me into the hospital at the age of 18. After I stopped working at Kroger, she put me in the hospital at 18. I've been in the hospital as a patient care technician, working women's health since then. I went on and got the credentials for her. So I am her manifestation. Since she took care of the family, then I went a little bit further in the race. And so that's how essentially I got started in the hospital at UAMS.
Wow.
Hmm.
So, like, at what point in your career did you begin to realize that you were doing more than a job? You know, it was kind of like more or less your calling.
So when I started taking care of patients, and I went to nursing school, I was able to compare and contrast the different areas. And when I knew, my grandmother, believe it or not, she was very churchy. And she is very churchy. Took me to church a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, Lord, can I do funeral home things? Because she always went to funerals. And one day the Lord said, no, I brought you to bring in life. And I'm like, what is that? I found women's health. I found women's health is what I do best. I've been through med-surg, ER, different places, but women's health is my calling. It's the thing that I do naturally without even thinking about it. And I feel like it's a service. And since then, I've been serving in the area of women's health. I've moved away from the bedside now and into IT, but I'm still over fetal monitoring, mother's milk bank, nurse practitioner charting, things of that sort.
But so you mentioned, you know, women's health.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how long did it take for you to realize that that's where you were supposed to be? And like, what was a defining moment?
So first you got to know who you are. And so I was just 18 at the time, and I didn't know I had gotten married to my son's dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I still was trying to find my way. And when I ventured out and tried to go work for AT&T in a corporate office, I quickly found out that was not my calling.
Well, hold on, Tanika. So what happened? I mean, like, what took place?
It's not my area. Is it corporate? I mean, I'm corporate, but I'm corporate healthcare. So
not
it's
like
a different
that type of,
it's a different type of flow.
Okay.
So I knew quickly that was my calling, and I haven't strayed from that ever since. And now I'm helping women in a different way. I'm also, while I'm in the corporate office, I'm helping women regain their title and their identity and purpose. So I always knew I had a call in ministry over my life and helping others. And I always kind of shied away to the back because I don't like to be in the spotlight. But every time I would try to shy away, God would pull me forward. So I just knew over time, as time went along, I just knew. The Bible said as they went, they kind of got healed. Like as I went along, I just knew that there was no other place that I want to be.
Now, what year did you become did you become a registered nurse?
Officially December 2009. I graduated from Baptist Health.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so what did that feel like? And, you know,
wow, a sense of accomplishment.
Was it hard?
Yes, it was definitely hard.
Was there times you just want to say, am I really cut out for this?
Absolutely. So there was a time that I missed a test by 3% during nursing school, and I had to wait a whole semester or whole year to go again. So I said, Lord, why would you bring me this far and allow me not to make it? And somebody gave me a scripture, Jeremiah 29:11 says, for I know the plans that I have for you, says the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you. I held on to that word. I worked patient care technician, and I went back to school and I finished. So I am a testament that even though it doesn't look like it, even though you may fail, that God will bring that thing around full circle and not to give up. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what is burnout, and what is burnout for a nurse, and why sometimes, you know, nurses don't see it coming?
So, as nurses, we've been groomed to be in productivity. We think that production brings peace, meaning working 12-hour shifts, doing everything. Most nurses are mom, wife, and a lot of times we get lost in our work, we get lost in our kids, we get lost sometimes in our spouse, and we don't even know who our identity. And anytime that shifts, a kid goes to college, a husband dies, or something happens that's abnormal, then people don't know who they are. They don't know their identity. They don't know their purpose. And a lot of things that they buried up under the rug is now starting to come up because now they have to deal with themselves. And they like, I don't know what to do.
Now, did you yourself personally experience any of those? And if so, like which
Absolutely.
ones?
Absolutely. And then I want to add too, with nurses, we can get compassion fatigue, meaning that we're so compassionate, being everything to everybody else, that it almost becomes irritating, where you don't want to go into the house after a 12-hour shift. You sit in a car and cry 20 minutes. You don't, patients calling on you, what you used to love to do now irritates you because you have given and given and given, and now you're in an empty place. And so, for me, yes, being married, not knowing who I was.
When you say not knowing who you was, like explain that.
Like my identity. So my identity became in my husband, and he was working at AT&T at the time, my son's dad. And so while I'm appreciative of him, God has a purpose for all of our lives. And so I started doing what he wanted to do and the things that he needed to do, but I wasn't moving in who I am, the king's daughter.
But most women do that, right?
Yes.
So where does this behavior come from?
So sometimes it's learned behavior.
Like from watching your parents?
Or watching your parents and not knowing, not being taught. A lot of things I wasn't taught. I didn't know about boundaries. I was a people pleaser. I didn't know about my capacity. I didn't know how to say, let your yes be your yes and your no be your no. Yeah, I had to learn how to do that. And I know, those are some of the things that come into burnout, is knowing your boundaries,
Why do you think men allow that for their spouse to just be all into them? And before you answer that, I mean, there was a point where my wife, Wendy, I saw that she was getting lost in me, and I had to stop her. I'm like, listen, you need to figure out what it is that you want to do, because if you don't, and something does happen to where we go our separate ways, you're not going to have an identity. So I share that with, now I know most men don't do that, but yeah.
Because they essentially, and I'm not all, they don't know. They haven't had an example. They just say leadership, control, take over. They don't know that she's supposed to be doing something as well as you. You guys are supposed to be building together, working as, as a couple. And so a lot of times they don't know. Sometimes it's a control issue. They haven't had the example before them. And so, and then us as wives, we want to please most want to please our husband, or we just don't know what our identity. So we find it in you. So I am so happy when I see people, like I just saw Marvin Sapp and his wife got married. And one of the things she was talking about is doing her private women ministry outside. And her husband said, now we're one. He says, so you can partake of the ministry and do your women's ministry here. So what he did is he encouraged her to do what she's been doing, but on a larger scale. So don't stop what you've been doing, but I open up the doors for you to do something on a larger scale. And I love that. I love that when you can still walk in your identity, but still, be under leadership of your husband too.
So Tanika, what do you think is for nurses, the danger of ignoring that they have burnout and yet they keep pushing through?
So for the danger is physically, your body breaks down. you end up in illness. It's not until you stop physically till you're made to stop. I went through a traumatic thing a couple of years ago after divorce, and I went from sickness to sickness, and most of it was with stress and burnout. So burnout comes in different ways. It can be in business, it can be nursing, different. You can see it in different ways financially. And so I went from a different thing, and when your body makes you stop, you have to stop, and that's where we're seeing a lot of things.
But that shouldn't be the case, right?
It shouldn't be the case. Right. It shouldn't be the case spiritually. You're weak. You're crushed. You're disconnected from the Creator. Mentally, you're all over the place. Your thoughts are not in order. So you're disorganized. And with women, we have to watch the women that I have primarily dealt with 35 to 50. Mm-hmm. We also have to watch our hormones because things change within that as well.
Like
imbalanced hormones. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, from your thought process, mm-hmm. like what does it actually look like for nurses to restore their capacity in more of a realistic, practical way?
So everybody has different things. So for me, 12-hour shifts no longer work once I had my daughter because life changed. And so sometimes when life changed, you got to make a pivot and you have to make a change as well. So I took jobs that paid less because I wanted to work remote, because I want to keep her from having to be in daycare and being really
somebody
sick.
else raising your
right,
child
and somebody else and paying $1,200 a month for daycare.
Yeah.
So I sacrificed the time, but it helped me mentally, and it gave me time to think about what I wanted to do. Now I work PRN at the hospital here and there as needed, but also easily I see all types of things on social media talking about I'm burnt out, I'm tired of working 12-hour shifts. I used to work night shifts. Night shifts is good for some people, but it goes against your natural cadence. And so your body fights against that, staying up all night and then sleeping during the day. When you have children school age, that doesn't work unless you have a partner. You can do it, but it's a stretch again. Mm-hmm. So you got to learn what works for you. Pivoting nutrition wise, pivoting mentally, spiritually, that works for your body. So,
I think about, my oldest sister, who is a retired nurse practitioner. In the early days of her working at UAMS, I remember my oldest sister, Kathy, would do like 4 days of 16-hour shifts. Now, I don't think they do that anymore at UAMS. Or
They do.
I don't think it's like how it was
not
with her.
Not 4 days back to back. You had to take a break in between.
Yeah. I would go pick up my sister, and the moment she got in the vehicle, just like that.
And that's pretty dangerous. I've known some nurses that have left work from nighttime and went off the road because they were so tired.
Wow.
I went to a bank one day when we were, when bank deposits were huge and you were doing that, and I went to sleep in the bank line because I was so tired.
Really?
Yes. My first job was in Cadence, Arkansas, and I literally had to open the window in order to stay up because I was so tired. But you learn this over time. And so that's another thing that I realize is a need, is that people need a change in jobs. A lot of people are asking for change in jobs because they're tired of working the 12-hour shifts.
I saw a press release of she was a former registered nurse. She a truck driver now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know one right now. I know one right now.
Wow.
Yeah, I know one right now, and she's a nurse, but she does truck driving.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So share with us like the things that you do as a nurse business coach.
So, what I do is I do a burnout assessment with my women to see exactly where they are. I have a framework called Hope Framework. It's called Healing, Overcoming, Purpose, and Empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I do is I allow them to take the assessment. I find out where they are in that assessment, and then I find out what's the biggest need that we need to attack. Everybody's different. I have one client now that's under financial stress. So I'm coaching her on financial stressors. And what we're finding out through her coaching is that it's not money management. She is not that she doesn't have any money. She has a master's, um, but it's exhaustion and stress. She works 6 to 7 days a week, and she makes irrational decisions based on her tiredness.
Mm.
And her kids are grown.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have like ongoing events for the different things you do as relates to women empowerment, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where can they find you? Like, what's the one place you be hanging out on social media? Where can they find you?
So they can find me on Facebook and Rooted in Purpose page. That's my nonprofit for women, for single mothers. You can message me there if you need to contact me.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So, Tanika, let me ask you this, because it sounds like you're going to be doing some like networking and, probably when people ask you what you do, you got to make sure that pitch is right, right?
Okay.
So as a guest, one of the things I always like to do, I want to give you a copy of my first book.
Okay.
And it's called Unlocking Opportunities, the ultimate guide to excelling at networking events and crafting the perfect elevator pitch. So I want you to read what I wrote to you.
Okay. Let's see here. It says, Tanika, clarity removes confusion. Communication builds connection, and connection changes everything. That's so true. Kevin D. Williams.
Yep.
That is so true.
Yep. So this is Catch the Vision podcast, where we don't just talk, right? We transform how you see, think, and show up. I'm Kevin D. Williams, and I'll see you on our next episode.
That's it.